am Surya Subedi. I am Professor of International Law and the author of the study guide on international economic law. Today I will talk about very briefly the content of Section A of the course. International economic law has 4 sections, Section A, B, C and D. Section A deals with the evolution of international economic law and the basic principles of international economic law. When I discuss the evolution of international economic law, I go back as far back as possible in history to outline how international economic law was conceived, how it has seen the journey of its development since time immemorial. Basically, when people began to cross borders and engage in international trade and investment relations with organizations and individuals in other countries. In my opinion, that's the beginning of international economic law. Of course, in a rudimentary form, not codified law as we know today, not international law in the sense that we know today, but some form of codification, some form of contractual relations, some form of international regulation of economic activities began to take place long time ago. I surveyed the development of international economic law, and then I come on to outline the basic principles of international economic law. What are the principles that govern relations between states, relations between other economic actors, multinational corporations, other corporations and governments, or between two companies themselves, multinational corporations, in their relations? When making a decision to invest abroad, what should a company do? What are the basic principles of international economic relations? Where do they come from? What are the sources of the principles of international economic law? These are the issues that I discuss in chapters 2 and 3 of Section A. In doing so, I rely primarily on hard law instruments, basically treaties, and then of course soft law instruments in international law in general and in international economic law. One has to be aware of both hard law and soft law principles. Soft law principles, they originate as soft law principles. In due course, they become hard law principles, either through their incorporation in treaties or through their general recognition in state practice, or courts, both national and international courts and tribunals, give force to these soft law instruments. So they do have a legal impact on the conduct of economic relations between states and between states and multinational corporations or other economic actors. Then I go on to examine the institutions of international economic law. What are the main international economic institutions today? To begin with, WTO, various agencies within the United Nations, Economic and Social Council, even the United Nations Human Rights Council has got itself involved in developing principles relating to business and human rights. So I do cover a raft of international institutions that are in existence today and which have a role to a certain extent in developing international economic law, implementing international economic law, and resolving disputes relating to international economic law. For instance, the WTO dispute settlement body. Another mechanism would be ICSID, the International Center for the Settlement of Investment Disputes based in Washington, D.C., or number of other bilateral arbitration mechanisms to resolve bilateral investment disputes. So I look at the range of international organizations established through a treaty or established through a resolution of the United Nations or through a diplomatic conference. What role do these institutions play, what their scope of activity is, what they are empowered or entitled to do, and what is the mechanism to further develop international economic law. As you know, the world is constantly changing. New instruments, new treaties, new declarations, new resolutions will have to be adopted to cater for or to respond to the challenges brought about the changes taking place around us every day. So what is the mechanism to develop international economic law? To fill the gap that exists in the law. For instance, how to hold multinational corporations to account for violations of human rights by their subsidiaries abroad. How to protect the environment in the countries where multinational corporations are doing their business. Just to give you one or two examples. So what is the mechanism there to codify and progressively develop international economic law? These are basically the issues that I examine in section A, basically from evolution to the principles and the institutions that are at work today.